For their 50th anniversary, I gave my parents a $425,000 seaside mansion. When I showed up to surprise them, my mom was in tears and my dad was shaking. My sister's family had moved themselves in. Her husband stepped toward my father, pointed at the door, and shouted, "This is my house, get out." My sister actually laughed, until I walked through the door, and the entire room went silent. You know that gut-wrenching moment when your entire world, everything you've meticulously built, is threatened by the very people who should be celebrating it with you? That's what happened the day I found my own sister, Chelsea, and her deadbeat husband, Derek, squatting in the dream home I'd bought for my parents, calmly dismantling their retirement, and threatening to call the police on them. I had spent 12 years pouring my heart and soul into building my tech consulting firm, clawing my way up from nothing, all for moments like this. My parents' 50th wedding anniversary was coming up, and I finally had the means to give them the retirement home they'd always deserved. I pictured my mom, Margaret, on Cape May Beach when I was 14, pointing at those elegant seaside mansions, a wistful whisper about someday. Dad, Robert, would just hug her, both of them knowing it was a distant dream on a teacher's and a nurse's salary. But I'd made it happen. 2 acres, direct beach access, wraparound porches, floor-to-ceiling windows, the master suite opening onto a private balcony overlooking the Atlantic. I'd hired a designer, picked out soft blues and whites, gourmet kitchen, comfortable sofas, everything perfect. Or so I thought. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad as I grabbed the anniversary banner from my trunk. "Lisa, there's been a situation. Your sister arrived yesterday." The words hit me with an instant chill. Chelsea. My older sister, 3 years my senior, a master of manipulation and entitlement. We hadn't spoken in nearly 8 months, not since she'd called me selfish for refusing to invest in her husband's 5th failed business venture. I quickened my pace toward the entrance, my heels clicking like a ticking clock against the stone. Through the large windows, I saw movement, more people than should be there. My parents were supposed to arrive alone for a quiet weekend before the big party. The heavy oak door was ajar. I pushed it open, and the scene before me turned my blood to ice. My mother was huddled on the designer sofa I'd chosen with such care, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. Dad stood nearby, complexion ash, hands trembling at his sides. He looked like he'd aged a decade since Christmas. Chelsea, meanwhile, was lounging in a leather armchair by the fireplace, one leg crossed, examining her manicured nails with theatrical boredom. Her husband, Derek, a perpetually failing entrepreneur with an overinflated sense of self-worth, stood between my parents and the door, chest puffed out like a rooster defending territory he had no right to claim. Their 3 kids, ages 6 to 12, were treating the carefully selected furniture like a trampoline, leaving sticky handprints on the cream-colored upholstery. A half-eaten pizza sat open on the imported marble coffee table, grease blooming on its surface. "This is my house now," Derek announced, his voice booming. He jabbed a finger toward the entrance. "Get out. You two had your chance to live somewhere nice. Now it's our turn." Chelsea's laugh cut through the room like broken glass. "Oh, stop being so dramatic, Derek. They can visit during holidays." "Maybe." My father's voice was barely a whisper. "But Lisa bought this for us. This is our anniversary gift." She signed the deed. Derek cut him off, taking an aggressive step closer to Dad. "Your daughter can buy you something else. Something more your speed. A nice little apartment somewhere. This house? This is exactly what Chelsea and I need. Our kids deserve to grow up in a place like this." Just then, their youngest, Emma, flung a juice box at the wall, red liquid splattering across the pristine white paint. "Emma, honey, don't waste it," Chelsea called out lazily. "Just drink it." Mom's sobs grew louder. "Please, you can't do this. Lisa worked so hard." "Lisa has plenty of money," Chelsea snapped, finally looking up from her nails. "She can afford to buy them something else. We need this house more. Do you know how much houses cost?" Derek's been trying so hard to get his businesses going, and we've been stuck in that cramped rental for years. It's not fair that they get something this nice when they're just going to be old and probably die soon anyway. The casual cruelty of her words hit me like a physical blow, even as I stood unnoticed in the entryway. Derek moved closer to my father, invading his personal space. Dad took an involuntary step backward. I'm telling you one more time, old man. This is my house now. Your name might be on some papers, but possession is 9/10 of the law. We're not leaving. You are. Chelsea stood up, smoothing her designer dress, the one I'd seen her post about on social media last week, complaining she'd maxed out another credit card. Mom, Dad, honestly, you're making this so much harder than it needs to be. Just accept that this is how it's going to be. Derek and I moved all our stuff in last night. The kids have already picked their rooms. It's done. How did you even know about this place? Dad's voice cracked. Lisa wanted it to be a surprise. Oh, please. Chelsea rolled her eyes. Mom mentioned something about Lisa buying property at the shore during our last phone call. It wasn't hard to figure out. I called that chatty realtor, Brenda something, and told her I was you, that I'd lost the address. She handed it right over. We drove down yesterday to check it out, and, well. She gestured around the room. Here we are. Home sweet home. Derek pulled out his phone. I'm calling the cops if you don't leave in the next 5 minutes. I'll tell them you're trespassing in our home, that you're unstable and threatening us. My mother looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. Robert, what do we do? Watching my father's face crumble, this man who'd worked 2 jobs to put both his daughters through college, who'd never taken a vacation longer than 3 days, who'd sacrificed everything for his family, something inside me snapped with the force of a breaking cable. I stepped fully into the room, my footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Chelsea's head whipped around, her face draining of color. Derek's hand, still pointing, froze midair. The children stopped their destruction, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Hello, Chelsea. Derek. My voice came out cold and level, years of board meetings and high-stakes negotiations lending it an edge I rarely used with family. I see you've made yourselves comfortable in my parents' home. Lisa. Mom scrambled off the couch, but I held up a hand. Everyone stay exactly where you are. I pulled out my phone, opening the voice recorder app. I'd started at the moment I heard Derek's threats from the hallway. That was very enlightening. Derek threatening to call the police with false accusations? That's filing a false report, which is a crime. Chelsea impersonating our mother to obtain private property information? Identity theft and fraud. Chelsea's mouth opened and closed like a fish. We're family. You wouldn't I? I moved further into the room, my presence seeming to push Derek back from where he'd been intimidating my father. Let's talk about what you've done here. Breaking and entering. Yes, Chelsea, just because you're related doesn't give you legal right to occupy someone else's property. Destruction of property. I gestured at the stained furniture, the juice-splattered walls. Harassment and threatening behavior toward elderly individuals, which, given their ages, could qualify for enhanced charges. Derek tried to recover his bravado. You can't prove anything. It's your word against ours. I held up my phone. Actually, I have recordings of everything said in the last 5 minutes, plus the video footage from the security cameras I had installed throughout the property. I pointed to the discrete camera mounted near the ceiling. They've been recording since you broke in yesterday. Every threat, every act of vandalism, every moment of you terrorizing my parents. The blood drained from Derek's face. But here's where it gets really interesting, I continued, my voice dropping to a dangerous calm. The deed to this property is in an irrevocable trust with my parents as the sole beneficiaries. I'm the trustee, which means even if they wanted to give you this house, which they don't, they legally cannot. The trust specifically prohibits any transfer of the property to you, Derek, or to Chelsea by name. I had my lawyers add that clause specifically because I know exactly who my sister is. Chelsea's face flushed red. You absolute, I'm not finished. I walked over to where the pizza box sat on my coffee table, pulling out my phone to document the damage. This furniture? Custom pieces, worth approximately $49,000 collectively. The table you stained? $12,000. The wall your daughter just redecorated? That's hand-mixed Venetian plaster. $3,000 to repair. I'm calculating damages as we speak. Mom found her voice. Lisa, how did you know to come now? Dad's text seemed off, too brief, so I called the security company and asked them to send me the live feed. I pulled my laptop from my bag, turning the screen to show the footage. I watched everything from the parking lot. I wanted to hear exactly what you'd say when you thought you'd won. Chelsea stood abruptly, her voice rising to a shriek. This is insane. We're a family. You can't treat us like criminals. You are criminals, I replied evenly. You committed multiple crimes in the pursuit of stealing property that never belonged to you and would never belong to you. Tell me, Chelsea, what made you think this would work? That I'd just shrug and buy Mom and Dad something else while you squatted in a house I purchased? Derek's aggressive posture had completely dissolved. Look, maybe we got a little carried away. We'll just leave and we can forget this whole thing happened. Oh, no. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We're way past that. You see, Derek, you threatened to file a false police report. You threatened my elderly father. You destroyed property. So, here's what's going to happen. You have exactly 30 minutes to gather your belongings and remove them and yourselves from this property. Every item you brought in goes with you. And if we don't? Chelsea asked, her defiance crumbling, replaced by something closer to panic. Then I call the police, the real police, and I press charges for everything I've documented. Breaking and entering, criminal trespass, destruction of property, harassment, elder intimidation, fraud, identity theft. I have lawyers on retainer who would love this case. By the time they're done, you'll be facing jail time and a civil suit that will bankrupt you for the rest of your lives. Chelsea sank back into the chair, her face a mixture of rage and desperation. You always do this. You always have to win. You can't just let anything go. This isn't about winning, I shot back. This is about stopping you from victimizing our parents. There's a difference between competition and cruelty. What you did crosses every line. Derek had gone pale. His earlier aggression completely evaporated. He pulled out his phone, frantically typing something. I'm texting my brother. Maybe we can stay with him for a while. Good plan, I said dryly. You should have thought about housing before you gave notice on your rental to squat in a stolen house. Chelsea's head snapped up. How do you know about that? Because I know you. You wouldn't have been this bold unless you'd already burned your bridges elsewhere. You were counting on this working. I walked over to the fireplace mantel, running my finger along the edge. Let me guess, you've been planning this for weeks, maybe even months. You probably started as soon as Mom let it slip that I was buying property. You researched the area, found out property values, convinced yourself that you deserved this more than they did. Derek probably encouraged it, telling you that your little sister shouldn't have more than you, that birth order should mean something, that you're entitled to a piece of everything I have because we share DNA. That's not, Chelsea started. Save it, I cut her off. I've watched this pattern my entire adult life. When I got my first promotion, you complained that it wasn't fair because you were older. When I bought my condo, you said I was showing off. When I started my company, you told everyone I was lucky, that I had connections you didn't. Never mind that those connections came from networking events I attended after working 12-hour days. Never mind that my luck was actually calculated risk and endless preparation. Dad had been listening silently, but now he spoke up. Lisa, I need to say something. He looked at Chelsea. Your sister is right. We've enabled this behavior for too long. Every time you got in trouble, we bailed you out. Every time you made poor choices, we softened the consequences. We thought we were helping, but we were teaching you that actions don't have repercussions. Dad, Chelsea's voice broke. No, let me finish. His hands had stopped trembling, replaced by a sad resolve. When you dropped out of college your junior year because you wanted to find yourself, we paid your rent for 8 months. When Derek's first business failed and you lost your savings, we gave you $15,000 we'd saved for a new roof. We put that roof repair off for 3 more years. Mom added quietly, when you couldn't make your car payment, we co-signed a loan that ruined our credit score when you defaulted. We kept telling ourselves that you'd learn, that you'd mature, that the next time would be different. Mom continued, but it never was. Meanwhile, Lisa put herself through graduate school, worked 3 jobs to build her savings. Never asked us for anything because she didn't need to. Chelsea exploded. Everything came easy to her. School, work, money. It all just fell into her lap. I laughed bitterly. Fell into my lap? Chelsea, do you have any idea what my life looked like while I was building my company? I lived in a studio apartment with furniture from thrift stores. I ate ramen and eggs for 2 years straight because I was reinvesting every penny into the business. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week. I missed weddings, birthdays, holidays. I sacrificed relationships because I didn't have time for dating. I developed an ulcer from stress at 29. I moved closer to her, my voice dropping. Nothing fell into my lap. I clawed my way to every single achievement. And you know what the worst part is? You were never happy for me. Not once. Every success I shared with you was met with resentment or a request for money. Do you remember when I landed my first major client? The contract that saved my company from bankruptcy? I called you, so excited I could barely breathe. You know what you said? Chelsea looked away. You said, must be nice. Some of us aren't that lucky. Then you asked if I could lend you $5,000 for Derek's catering business idea, the one that lasted 6 weeks. Derek shifted uncomfortably. That business would have worked if what? I turned to him. If you'd actually created a business plan? If you'd researched the market? If you'd secured proper permits before buying equipment, or if you'd shown up for the events you booked instead of canceling last minute because you weren't feeling it? His jaw clenched. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Chelsea showed me the whole sorry story, asking for advice on how to salvage it. I spent hours reviewing your financials, creating a recovery plan. You ignored every suggestion I made and blamed the economy when it collapsed. Mom stood up slowly, moving to stand beside Dad. Derek, you've had opportunities most people would dream of. Chelsea's inheritance from her grandmother? $40,000 gone in a year on your tech startup. The money we loaned you, the money Lisa gave you, all of it disappeared into ventures you abandoned the moment they required actual work. This is ridiculous. Derek snapped. We're being attacked for trying to provide for our family. Provide for your family? Dad's voice rose. By stealing from your in-laws? By terrorizing 2 people in their 70s? By teaching your children that theft is acceptable if you want something badly enough? We weren't stealing. Chelsea shouted. We were just claiming what should have been partly ours anyway. Mom and Dad have 2 daughters. Lisa shouldn't get to just decide she's the only one who gets to do nice things for them. Then do something nice for them yourself. I shot back. Buy them a gift. Plan a party. Spend time with them without asking for money. Show up when they need you. But you can't steal my gift and call it love. Chelsea stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. You have no idea what it's like to struggle, to worry about bills, to wonder how you'll feed your kids, to feel like you're drowning while everyone else swims past you. You're right, I said evenly. I don't know what that's like because I've never had 3 children I couldn't afford. I've never repeatedly quit jobs because I didn't feel appreciated. I've never spent money I didn't have on designer clothes and luxury cars to impress people I don't like. Those are choices you made, Chelsea. Choices with consequences. So, we're just supposed to suffer because we made different choices than you? No, you're supposed to learn from poor choices and make better ones. Get stable jobs. Create a budget. Live below your means until you can afford to live within them. Stop expecting other people to fund your lifestyle. Be parents who model responsibility instead of entitlement for your children. The middle child, Jackson, appeared in the doorway. Mom, Dad, are we leaving? I don't want to go. This house is cool. Chelsea's face softened. Go back to the car, honey. We'll be right there. After he left, she turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. Those kids are why we did this. They deserve stability. They deserve a nice home. They deserve to not be the poor kids at school. Then give them stability, I said, more gently. But real stability. The kind that comes from parents who work consistently, pay their bills on time, and demonstrate integrity. A fancy house built on theft isn't stability. It's a disaster waiting to happen. What were you going to tell them when I showed up? How were you going to explain why Grandma and Grandpa couldn't visit their own home? Chelsea had no answer. Your kids don't need a mansion, Mom said softly. They need parents who are present, who are honest, who teach them good values. Some of my happiest memories with you girls were in our tiny 2-bedroom house, playing board games on the floor because we couldn't afford a dining table big enough. That's easy to say now that you have all this, Chelsea gestured around bitterly. We have this because your sister worked herself to exhaustion to give it to us, Dad said firmly. And we'd give it up in a heartbeat if it would teach you the value of earning things rather than taking them. But it wouldn't. You'd just find something else to covet, someone else to resent. The silence that followed was heavy with years of accumulated disappointment and failed interventions. The children had gone completely quiet, huddled together on the couch. Despite my anger at their parents, I softened my voice for them. Kids, go wait in your car. This is an adult conversation. They didn't need to be told twice, scrambling toward the door. Chelsea's face crumpled. Lisa, please. We made a mistake. We're desperate. Derek's business, Derek's 5th failed business, I corrected. Because he refuses to get a stable job like everyone else. Because you both think the world owes you something without working for it. How many times have I helped? I continued. How many loans have I given that were never repaid? 10,000 for the restaurant that closed in 3 months. 15,000 for the consulting firm that never had a single client. 20,000 when you were between jobs for a year. Derek's jaw clenched. We would have paid you back if what? I cut in. If I kept funding your delusional schemes indefinitely? I worked 80-hour weeks for years to build my company. I sacrificed relationships, sleep, and my 20s while you two bounced from one get-rich-quick scheme to another. And somehow I'm the selfish one for not bankrolling your lifestyle. I walked over to the window, staring out at the ocean view that should have been a peaceful backdrop for my parents' golden years. Do you know what the real tragedy is? I said quietly. You had every advantage I had. Same parents, same upbringing, same opportunities for education. Dad worked overtime to make sure we both could go to college debt-free. Mom took extra nursing shifts to help with our living expenses. Turning back, I locked eyes with Chelsea. The difference between us isn't luck or talent. It's discipline and gratitude. When I got my first job out of college, I saved 30% of every paycheck. You spent yours on concerts and shopping trips and complained you were broke. When I got promoted, I used the raise to invest in professional development courses. You used your raises to lease cars you couldn't afford. It's not that simple, Chelsea protested weakly. It really is, I replied. Success is built on 1,000 small decisions compounded over time. Every morning I woke up at 5 a.m. to work on my business before my day job. Every weekend I spent networking instead of partying. Every time I wanted to splurge on something frivolous, I asked myself if it moved me closer to my goals. Those decisions add up. Derek scoffed. So we're just supposed to live like monks, never enjoy anything? There's a difference between enjoying life and living beyond your means. I took vacations after I could afford them. I bought a nice car after I'd saved up and could pay cash. I moved into a better apartment after my business was profitable for 6 consecutive quarters. Everything in order, everything earned. Mom had been quiet, but now she spoke with a tremor in her voice. Chelsea, do you remember when you were 8 and wanted that expensive dollhouse? We told you that you'd need to save your allowance and do extra chores. You saved for 3 months, and when you finally bought it, you treasured it for years. What does that have to do with anything? Chelsea asked. Because you understood the value of working for something back then, Mom said. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that lesson. You started wanting everything immediately, without the work or the wait. And when things didn't come easily, you gave up instead of persisting. Chelsea's shoulders shook with silent sobs. I'm not a bad person. I'm just tired. Tired of struggling. Tired of watching everyone else have more. Tired of feeling like a failure. For a moment, my anger softened into something closer to pity. Chelsea, you're not a failure because you lack success, I said. You're failing because you refuse to change the behaviors that keep you stuck. Every time you hit rock bottom, someone rescues you before you have to confront the real issues. That ends today. So, you're just going to abandon us? She asked. Your own sister? I'm not abandoning you, I replied. I'm refusing to enable you. There's a difference. If you want real help, I'll connect you with a financial counselor. I'll help Derek write an actual resume and practice interview skills. I'll babysit your kids while you both work real jobs. But I won't give you another dollar until you demonstrate genuine change. Derek's face flushed red. We don't need your charity. Then figure it out on your own. Those are your options. Accept help with conditions, or solve your own problems. What you can't do is steal from my parents and expect me to look the other way. I checked my watch, my businesslike demeanor returning. 15 minutes remaining. I suggest you use them wisely. Mom had stopped crying, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Dad just looked exhausted, sinking into a chair. What really hurts, I said, my voice finally betraying emotion, is that you've always seen our parents as a resource to exploit. When Dad had his heart attack 3 years ago, where were you? I was the one at the hospital handling his medical care, making sure Mom ate and slept. You showed up once, stayed for 20 minutes, and asked Dad if you could borrow money while he was still in the ICU. Chelsea's face went white. When Mom needed surgery last year, I rearranged my entire schedule for 6 weeks to help. You sent a card, 1 card. But you had plenty of time to call me, asking for another investment in Derek's newest venture. We're still family, Chelsea whispered. Family doesn't do what you did today, I replied. Family doesn't make their mother sob in fear. Family doesn't threaten their father in his own home. Family doesn't try to steal something that took years of sacrifice to give. I checked my watch again. You now have 26 minutes. Derek grabbed Chelsea's arm. Come on, let's just go. Where are we supposed to go? Chelsea's voice rose hysterically. Our lease is up at the rental. We gave notice. We don't have anywhere to go because you thought you'd successfully steal a house, I finished for her. That's not my problem. You're adults. Figure it out the same way everyone else does. Get jobs, pay rent, live within your means. Says the woman who has everything, Chelsea spat venomously. I have what I worked for, I corrected. There's a difference. Every dollar I have came from building something real, providing actual value to clients, and managing money responsibly. You want to know why I'm successful? It's not luck. It's because when my business was failing in year 2, I didn't quit and ask someone to bail me out. I worked 20-hour days until I figured out what was wrong. It's because when a major client left, I didn't throw a tantrum. I analyzed what went wrong, improved my services, and found 3 more clients. Success isn't something you're owed. It's something you build. Derek had started gathering bags, his movements jerky with barely suppressed rage. Chelsea stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "You've always been cruel," she whispered. "Always so superior. Just because you made money doesn't make you better than us." "Making money doesn't make me better," I said evenly. "Having character does. When I lend money, I expect repayment or honesty about inability to repay. When I give a gift, I don't try to manipulate more. When my parents need me, I show up. Those things make someone decent. What you did today, that reveals who you really are." Mom finally spoke, her voice steady but firm. "Chelsea, just go. Please. You've done enough damage." Chelsea turned to our mother, hurt flashing across her face. "Mom, no." Mom's voice hardened in a way I'd rarely heard. "Lisa is right. What you did today is unforgivable. You're my daughter, and I love you, but I don't like who you've become. You need to leave." The words hit Chelsea harder than anything I'd said. She grabbed a bag, nearly stumbling toward the door. Derek followed, calling for the kids. As they gathered at the entrance, Chelsea turned back one last time. "Don't expect us at the anniversary party." "Good," Dad said quietly, speaking for the first time since I'd arrived. "You're not invited anymore." The door slammed behind them. Through the window, I watched them pile into their SUV, another vehicle they couldn't afford, probably leased at an astronomical rate. The tires squealed as Derek gunned it down the driveway. Silence filled the house. Mom broke it first, moving toward me with arms outstretched. I hugged her tightly, feeling her shake against me. "I'm so sorry, honey. I never should have mentioned anything about the house to her." "It's not your fault," I murmured. "She would have found out eventually. This is who she is." Dad joined our embrace, his voice thick. "Lisa, I couldn't believe it. We got here this morning, so excited. The house was everything you described. We were walking through, planning where to put our books, which bedroom would be for guests. Then Chelsea's car pulled up. She seemed happy to see us at first, asked about the house. We showed her around. Then Derek started making comments about how they deserved something like this, how it wasn't fair. He pulled back, rubbing his face. They left for several hours. When they came back late in the afternoon, they had moving trucks. Started bringing in furniture, claiming rooms. When we protested, Derek turned aggressive. Chelsea backed him up, said they'd already decided this was happening, and we should just accept it. Mom added, "We tried calling you, but Derek took our phones. Said we were being dramatic and needed to calm down. He gave them back about an hour ago after Chelsea convinced him you'd just buy us something else." The full weight of what they'd endured hit me. "Did he hurt either of you?" I asked quietly. "No," Dad assured me quickly. "Just intimidation, standing too close, raising his voice. But Lisa, I've never felt so helpless. I'm 70 years old, and some punk, in my own house, the house you bought for us, was treating me like an intruder." I guided them both to the couch, away from the pizza stains. "I need to ask you both something important. Do you want to press charges?" Everything I said about their crimes was true. We have video evidence of all of it. If you want to pursue legal action, I'll support you completely. They exchanged a long look, that silent communication that comes from 50 years together. "No," Mom finally said. "As angry as I am, she's still my daughter. I don't want her to go to jail or have a criminal record, but I don't want her in our lives anymore either. Not until she fundamentally changes." Dad nodded in agreement. "The security footage is enough deterrent. If they try anything again, we'll have proof. But for now, I just want them gone." I respected their decision, even though part of me wanted to watch Chelsea face consequences for once. "Okay," I said, "but I'm increasing security. More cameras and alarm system, and I'm adding your names to a protection order with the security company. If Chelsea or Derek show up on this property again, the company will call the police automatically. Thank you, sweetheart, Mom said, looking around at the damaged furniture and walls. Can we fix all this? Already handled, I replied. I'll call the restoration team tomorrow. Everything will be perfect again within a week, and I'm hiring someone to clean everything they touched. Professional deep clean. Dad managed a weak smile. You thought of everything, didn't you? I tried. I sat between them, taking each of their hands. I wanted this to be perfect for you. I wanted you to walk in and feel like every sacrifice you made was worth it. Every time you didn't buy something for yourselves so we could have what we needed. Every extra shift, every coupon clipped, every dream deferred. This house was supposed to say that your life's work mattered. That you deserve beauty and comfort. Mom's tears started again, but different this time. Oh, Lisa, she said softly. It does. It says all of that. What happened with Chelsea doesn't change what you did for us. This is the most incredible gift anyone has ever given us. Your mother's right, Dad said, his voice steadier. When we walked in this morning, before Chelsea arrived, we just stood in the entryway and cried. Happy tears. We walked through every room, and your mother kept saying, "Is this real? Is this really ours?" The ocean view from the bedroom, the way the light comes through those windows, the kitchen with the restaurant-grade stove your mother always wanted. It's everything we ever dreamed about. And it still is, Mom insisted. Chelsea can't take that away. She tried, but you stopped her. You protected us. We sat there for a long moment, the ocean breeze drifting through the open windows, bringing with it the promise of peaceful mornings and sunset dinners on the porch. I need to tell you both something, I said carefully. The trust that owns this house, it's not just to protect it from Chelsea. When you eventually pass, many, many years from now, the house comes back to me. I set it up that way specifically so Chelsea can never contest the will or try to claim it. This house will never be hers. Dad squeezed my hand. That's smart. Painful, but smart. Do you think we're horrible parents? Mom asked suddenly. To have raised a daughter who could do something like this? No, I said immediately. You raised 2 daughters. One turned out selfish despite your best efforts. One turned out okay. You loved us the same. Gave us the same opportunities. Taught us the same values. What we did with that was our choice. Chelsea chose entitlement. I chose gratitude. That's on us, not you. Dad's eyes welled up. How did you get so wise? I had good teachers, I said, smiling at them both. Now, here's what we're going to do, I continued. We're going to order takeout from that seafood place in town, the one with the crab cakes you love. We're going to eat dinner on the back porch while watching the sunset. Tomorrow, we'll make a list of everything that needs to be repaired. And then we're going to focus on the good things. Your anniversary party is next week, and I've invited 40 of your closest friends. This week is about celebrating 50 years of marriage, not about Chelsea's attempted theft. Mom managed a genuine smile. That sounds perfect. As I called in the dinner order, I watched my parents walk hand in hand toward the back porch, their silhouettes framed by the golden light of the setting sun. They'd been through hell today, but they were still here, still together, still resilient after 5 decades. My phone buzzed with a text from Chelsea. You've destroyed our family. I hope you're happy. I almost laughed. Destroyed the family? I protected the family. The parts worth protecting. I deleted the message without responding. An hour later, we sat around the porch table, cracking crab legs and dipping them in butter. The trauma of the afternoon began to fade into something we'd eventually process and move past. Dad told the story of how he proposed to Mom, a tale I'd heard dozens of times but never tired of hearing. Mom laughed at all the same parts, her eyes bright with the same love I imagined she felt 50 years ago. To 50 years, I raised my glass of wine, and to many more in this beautiful home. To Lisa, Dad countered, who gave us more than a house. Who gave us dignity and peace, and protection from people who should have protected us. Mom added quietly. We clinked glasses as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Later, after my parents had gone to bed in their new master suite, I sat alone on the porch, listening to the waves crash against the shore. My laptop was open, reviewing the security footage one more time, making sure I had everything documented and backed up in multiple locations. Chelsea's face on the screen, that moment when she realized I'd caught her, would stay with me for a while. There was shock, yes, but also something else. A flicker of understanding that she'd finally pushed too far, crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Part of me ached for the sister I'd once known. The Chelsea who braided my hair before school, who helped me study for tests, who defended me from bullies in 7th grade. That Chelsea had disappeared, gradually replaced by someone I barely recognized. Someone who measured relationships by what she could extract from them. I couldn't fix her. That was her journey, if she ever chose to take it. But I could protect my parents. I could ensure they lived their remaining years in peace and comfort, free from manipulation and greed. The house would stand as a symbol of their life's work, their enduring love, and the value of building something real through sacrifice and commitment. My phone buzzed again. Derek, this time. We're staying at a motel. The kids are asking why we had to leave the pretty house. Hope you can live with yourself. The manipulation was transparent, trying to use their children to guilt me. I blocked both their numbers and added them to the security system's exclusion list. Tomorrow, I'd meet with my lawyers to formally document everything that had happened. I'd update my parents' estate plan to add additional protections. I'd hire the restoration team to erase the physical damage. The emotional damage would take longer, but we'd get through it. The anniversary party next week would happen as planned. Friends would gather to celebrate a love that had survived 5 decades of life's challenges, including today's betrayal. There would be laughter and music, stories, and tears of joy. Chelsea's absence would be noted, whispered about, but ultimately, the celebration would continue because that's what resilience looks like. Not the absence of wounds, but the refusal to let those wounds define you. I pulled out my phone and texted both of my parents, knowing they were probably still awake, processing everything. I love you both more than words can say. Sleep well in your forever home. Mom's response came quickly. We love you more. Thank you for being our daughter. Thank you for today. Dad's followed. Proud doesn't begin to cover it. Good night, Lisa girl. I closed my laptop and looked out at the ocean, dark now, except for the moonlight dancing on the waves. The house behind me stood solid and secure, full of the people who mattered most. Chelsea had tried to take this moment from us, tried to poison this gift with her greed. She failed. The mansion would stand as a testament to what happens when you work for something rather than try to steal it. When you honor your parents rather than exploit them. When you build relationships on love rather than manipulation. And tomorrow morning, my parents would wake up in their dream home, make coffee in their gourmet kitchen, and step out onto their private beach to watch the sunrise over the Atlantic. Exactly as I planned.